On today's show, how important is it for Paul George to be kept by the Clippers? Can they let him walk? What are the consequences of letting him walk? And what are all the situations that are involved with his contract? Going to be talking about it all on today's Locked On Still in Cancun Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA, and just finished my 19th season as a Clipper fan. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod, and subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, where I talk about every single NBA playoff game after it happens. And Locked On Clippers is free and available wherever you get your podcasts, never behind a paywall. Just throw us a subscription on YouTube as well and comment what you think. Can the Clippers or should the Clippers let Paul George go? How detrimental would it be, in your opinion, to let him go? And we're going to be talking about all the ramifications of that financially, team roster-wise, and all that in this episode. So let's begin. And by the way, for those wondering, how long is it going to be Cancun Clippers when I do the intro? Until the season ends. Then it'll be off-season Clippers. So let's talk about the first thing, right? In my opinion, the Clippers cannot let Paul George walk for nothing. I think that is the ultimate case scenario, because if he just opts out of his deal, because he's got that player option for this next season, right? If he opts into that, he's got $49 million next year. And people might be wondering, $49 million? Why would he say no to that? Well, because after that year, 2024-25, he's got no guaranteed contract yet, right? So let's say he goes through some big injury next year. That's going to make teams far more resistant to give him a new contract. And this is probably going to be his last big contract before he doesn't get big contracts anymore. So he's looking to get his money, I would think, right here. Now, the thing is, the Clippers have shown major resistance in giving him, the max, because they didn't even give Kawhi the max. So I think not giving Kawhi the max, especially now that Kawhi made All-NBA, so I think he's technically eligible for that stuff, but he already signed re-signed a new contract, or signed a new contract. Paul George, the fact that Kawhi Leonard got paid that much, not a max, it tells me that the Clippers wanted Kawhi to set the precedent that, you know what, Paul, you're not making more than that. You're either making that or less. But it seems like the Clippers want him to make less than Kawhi, because Kawhi is just the better player. But of course, Paul George might go into the negotiation room like, well, who's the one that's on the court in the playoffs? Who's the one that got you past the conference finals when you were 2-2 against the Jazz in the second round, the round you'd never gotten out of, and I led us across the finish line? Who played 31 games in 2022 when the stadium wasn't sold out because Kawhi was out? He could say these things in negotiations. Now, see, I wouldn't entertain them too much if I were the Clippers, but you just can't let him walk, which makes this very, concerning. So he's not going to opt into that deal, in my opinion, unless the Clippers reach some kind of mutual agreement with him where they're like, you know what, Paul, we clearly aren't seeing eye to eye. We're not going to give you that contract you want. But then for whatever reason, Paul's not getting what he wants from Philly. Because Philly has to think, if they want to max Paul George out, now they have Embiid, Maxey, and Paul George on really big contracts. So the rest of their roster is probably not going to be filled out that great, right? So if they want to do that and kind of limit their flexibility, that's on them. But I do genuinely think that the Philadelphia 76ers having Paul George as a third option would be like the most ideal situation for him at this point. I think if Paul George wants to win a ring, he should go to Philly, like straight up. I'm not even joking. Because Embiid, despite his injury concerns, he's much better in the regular season than Kawhi. And I wouldn't say much better, but he's better. In the regular season, Joel Embiid is top 3 in the NBA. But in the playoffs, Kawhi's infinitely better. But Embiid always gets hurt too. The difference is Embiid gets hurt, but it's not a serious enough injury where he can't play through it. He always ends up playing through it and then it's looking a little bit worse. Kawhi legitimately just, he tried playing through it and he didn't even look the same. Whereas Embiid, he dropped a 50 ball in game 3 against the Knicks. So I would go if I were Paul George, if I got that max contract. The question is Philly going to pay him that? So I don't think he's going to opt into that deal because he wants more money. And right now, Paul George, despite the 19 points per game in the first round and a bad exit, Dallas is 2-0 up right now at the time that I'm recording this on Minnesota. They are 2 games away from the NBA Finals, and we were up 1-0 against them without Kawhi. So that tells you that, Dallas was probably better than we gave them credit for, and Paul George and the Clippers, especially the organization, are only going to use this run by Dallas to say, man, we weren't that far off, because if we had Kawhi, we could have maybe beaten them. But we don't understand. What we are failing to understand if we use that approach is that styles make fights, and just because we had a decent matchup against Dallas with Kawhi healthy does not mean we would have had a great matchup against OKC or Minnesota or any of those teams. I do think our matchup with Dallas is probably better than some others, but point being that we cannot let Paul walk, because then we're not getting anything for him. And even if Paul George leaves, does that mean we're going to let go of Harden? Because if Harden and Paul, if we don't re-sign either of them, then Kawhi is not going to be happy. So we are almost trapped. And it's like, this is not the summer where you're going to have the cap space, nor is it the summer that there's going to be a bunch of free agents for you to try to go after. Paul George is literally one of the top 3 free agents. Like him, Siakam, and Maxey are like the top guys on the list. So the thing is, if you're the Clippers, you got to re-sign him. Even though you might trade him later down the line, you got to re-sign him so he doesn't go to Philly and walk. But the thing is, what does he want? Now, there's a chance the Clippers could stretch the deal and make it like 4 years, 100 and say $60 million. So that would be $40 million per year for 4 years. And then the last year, he's got a player option. But the reason why the Clippers might be resistant in doing that is because that would mean that he has 1 more year on his deal than Kawhi. And I think theoretically, they want all of them expiring at the same time. So it's going to be really interesting. Our whole offseason hinges on this. But no, you cannot let Paul George just walk for free. You just can't after all that he's done and after this. Let's say he opts in. I don't know what scenario it would be where he would opt in and then we trade him because Philly doesn't want to pay him and he doesn't like the options of teams that can just like pay him outright. He wants to go somewhere where maybe he'll opt into that last year of his contract and then be a free agent next summer. If I'm Paul George, though, I'm not waiting another year, because the thing about Paul is he's still very good, but he is declining yearly. I mean, it's age. It happens. It's father time. So if I'm him, I'm trying to get my money now. If that's what he cares about, I'm trying to get my money now. If he doesn't care about the money, just opt into that final year. Save us all the trouble. But the thing is, the Clippers are just in a tough spot because even if Paul George walks, let's say Paul George walks and goes to Philly, and then you're like, okay, we still got to bring back Harden, or else we won't even be a 50-win team. You bring back Harden, you're still, if you still have Westbrook and PJ Tucker and Norman Powell's contracts, you're still over that second apron. So you still have limited flexibility in the free agency period. So like, what good is that? So you can't let him walk. My preference for Paul George and Kawhi and Harden, all of them, is that we just wait for them to start playing well, we re-sign them all, and then just trade them when their value's high, and just get rid of them all, and just get all the picks back that we can. That's what I would do. But I know the Clippers are scared of like having no stars in a new stadium, which is, again, a scare tactic. In the first year, it will still be pretty filled, I promise. But anyway, that's what I have to say. My moral of the story is you can't let him walk. Coming up, though, what is he worth, in my opinion? Going to be talking about that coming up and evaluating some performance. I got to tell you a little something about LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. I've never actually hired on LinkedIn, but I've been hired on LinkedIn. So it was successful for me. Maybe it'll be successful for you if you want to improve and find the right candidates for your business. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right. So talking about Paul George and his contract situation, what is Paul George worth? Now, today's market, I want everybody to remember, it's very inflated, right? It's very inflated. So the contracts from, say, even 10 years ago are like unthinkable when you actually talk about how much these guys are making now. Paul George was making upwards of between 40 and $50 million the last 4 seasons. So let's just say he's worth less than that, because that was the contract he essentially got in his prime, right? Or like, that the prime and his twilight of it. So for me, I think he's worth about $40 million per year max now. If before he was 40 to 50, which again, he was overpaid. So like, I'd say 35 to 40 million is his worth. Maybe even the lowest I would go is 30. He probably thinks he's worth more than that though. So it'll be tough. I think based on the fact that Kawhi signed a 3-year contract, I think they want to sign Paul on a 3-year contract. So like 40 million over 3 years would be pretty good, I think. 40, 80, 120. So 120 over 3 years. Not 40 over 3. Yeah. 40 million each year for 3 years. 120 million for 3 years. Is he going to agree to that though? Because that would mean he's making 10 million less than Kawhi every season, which honestly should be the case. Like the only way the Clippers are going to have flexibility to do anything and get anybody really decent is you shed Westbrook and PJ Tucker's salary, and then you sign Paul George and James Harden to team-friendlier deals. And like that means Harden not taking really any more than $30 million per year, which again, this is the last contract for Harden too, in terms of like a solid deal. So they want money as well. So it puts the Clippers in a very tough spot. It's going to be very hard to get under that second apron, which will allow us to make more moves and have more roster flexibility. It's going to be very hard. So when you look at Paul George's performance this season, you look at the numbers, and yeah, he averaged 23, 6, and 4, whatever it was. Yeah, 23, 5, and 4, and he shot really well. I mean, 47, 41 splits. I mean, he had his highest field goal percentage. No way was that his highest field goal percentage of his career. It was, wow. So you can definitely thank James Harden for that a little bit. Absolutely, and Westbrook. But mainly Harden, I'd say. Just because he got more open shots than ever before. But he also didn't seem at times as aggressive as you'd want him to be. 3-point percent. Was that his best 3-point shooting season of his career? Wow. He had his best field goal shooting, 3-point percentage, and free throw. Wow, he had his best shooting splits in every category in his entire career. That's insane. No one ever talks about that. It's wild how like hard we are on Paul. He deserves every bit of it, but like when you think about like at age 33, he had his best shooting season, field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, and free throw percentage. It's like, man, if you're Paul George, I'm walking in the room and saying, I just had my most efficient season ever, and you're talking about lowballing me. So like, it's a tough world out there in negotiations. I think that being said, though, Paul is still not worth over any more than $40 million. Let's just begin with the fact that he's extremely inconsistent in the regular season. No, not even in the regular season. He's extremely inconsistent in general. So, like one game, he looks like an absolute world beater. You can't stop him. He's getting buckets in all sorts of ways. He's defending. You see that versatility that he has. His ability to play off the ball, come off screens, work quickly off the catch. And then you see his ability in the mid post, the way he can just turn over the top of guys like they're not even there. I mean, when Paul George is on a heater, he is the most aesthetically pleasing Clipper that we've ever had to see play basketball, in my opinion. Just, he's so smooth. He gets low on his handle for a guy his size. It's truly just something to behold. But then so often he becomes enamored with that aesthetic and trying to, make the highlight play, and he'll get the step on his defender and then pull it back to get a fancy step back, snatch back, and he'll over dribble in the perimeter on his isolations, and he'll just waste too much time doing that and take really tough shots and ends up being a game where like he's shot 10 out of his 14 shots have been jumpers, and he's just never found a rhythm because he's gotten nothing easy and he doesn't get to the line. And a large reason he doesn't get to the line is because I think the injuries have taken a mental toll on him where he, is, I don't know, either he's afraid to get injured or he just isn't aggressive enough. He's still fairly quick to get by guys, but then my biggest issue is that when he tries to get by guys, sometimes he'll still snatch it back for no reason. So with Paul, he frustrates me because then also that's not to account for having one of the lowest basketball IQs of any superstar I've ever seen, and that's not even being harsh. That's really true. The really untimely turnovers that he has in crunch time, live ball especially, usually on a live dribble, especially when the defense is in drop coverage and he's trying to make a pass across the court, he will make a bad read or he'll throw it away. And sometimes he'll just have passes where you're just like, what were you thinking? We say that about Westbrook all the time, but we don't say that enough about Paul. I mean, Clipper fans do, but like as a basketball community overall, we don't. And yeah, I think that his turnovers are it's just the live dribbling stuff in terms of turnovers for Paul. I think he's not bad when teams blitz him. I think that's actually when Paul's at his best. He makes some pretty good pocket passes or lob passes over to that short roll guy. But in terms of like pick and roll playmaking, while he's not bad, he's not necessarily that good. He just will get you some good shots here and there because he's a decent passer and he attracts so much attention offensively. But I just think, and then the playoffs, that was the ultimate test. It's like, I've been defending you all year. There's been people in the comment section saying Paul's so annoying, trade him, he's inconsistent. You don't know what Paul you're going to get. His numbers end up averaging out to what I read earlier, so like it doesn't look that bad on the stat sheet. But then in the playoffs, without Kawhi Leonard, for you to average 19 points a game there's no excuse for it. And then on his podcast, all he did was say, we didn't do this, we didn't do that. There was no, I played terribly. There was no, I played like ass. There was no, I only averaged 19. It was not really the accountability I was looking for as a fan. And like now I listen to his podcast with Cameron Brink, and like I'm watching for Cameron Brink. I'm not watching for Paul. And every time I hear him talk, I'm just like you're pissing me off. I love you, but you're pissing me off. Like you just it just doesn't seem to bother these guys that much. It doesn't seem to. It is what it is. Like it's like I get it. You don't want these guys to be miserable, but it's like I'd have a problem showing my face to my fan base if I did that in the playoffs. Like I'm just very hard on myself in everything I do. So like I don't know. I wonder how Paul is with that. It's just like you guys said. Paul George said we were going to get it right, keep the faith, Clipper Nation. But they haven't gotten anything right in terms of the long-term picture. And I get it. Kawhi's been hurt. But, like, can you at least do your part so that I can say it's all Kawhi, that he can't stay healthy? Because if Paul George had averaged 25 points a game, okay, we lose in 6 or 7 games, fine. But, like, at least we can say it was just because Kawhi wasn't hurt, but you did your job. And I can't say that. So, yeah. Coming up, though, going to be looking at the worst case scenario. What is the worst case scenario for Paul George and the Clippers in the off season? Going to be talking about that coming up. I got to tell you a little something about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right, so let's talk about what's the worst case scenario for the Clippers, and that would be for Paul George to walk. Because then you're in a predicament, as I mentioned earlier, of, okay, are we going to re-sign James Harden? If Paul George walks, I wouldn't re-sign James Harden. I would just, because then if you clear them, now you're under that second apron. So now you can figure out what you want to do going forward, but then it's like, how do you sell Kawhi on what you're building here? But then if he demands a trade, then you can actually get something for him. So like, I don't know. It's just I may not be the right like person. If you're a super pro 213, which like if you're a real Clipper fan, not a fan of Kawhi, Russ, or Harden or Paul. If you're like a Clipper fan, if you were a Clipper fan before we got Kawhi, which a lot of you are, let me know in the comments like how committed are you to 213 at this point? Like does it bother you what I'm saying about like selling high with them? Like because I just don't think that they can stay healthy for the playoff run. And I don't think that they're good enough, even if healthy, in terms of like our overall roster. Like I just think we're too old, too slow, and we don't get enough easy baskets. And you're seeing right now, like with the Dallas Mavericks, Luka and Kyrie Irving, they're just so dynamic. You know, Luka is younger than me. He literally was born in 99. I'm born in 98. So, like, think about it. Compared to Kawhi, who's had all those surgeries, like, it's a different world out there for him. And Kyrie Irving, he actually hasn't had serious injuries like that. He's had injuries here and there, but nothing that serious. So, and he's so quick. He really is. So, my point is, I just don't see a situation, though, where Paul George wants to be in LA. We know that. We know he wants to be here. So it really comes down to what the Clippers want to pay him and how much he wants. That's all it comes down to. And if you let him walk, you're putting in this franchise in a very interesting situation. I mean, to let him go for nothing, it would just be a travesty. Unless it leads to us blowing it up. Then I don't think it's a travesty. But even then, right? Even let's say, okay, he does walk and then you lose Harden. You were literally losing two guys that you gave up treasure chests of picks for. So no, that would be also a pretty bad scenario. So like, yeah, I have to hold on and reel back a bit and be like, okay, D, talking to myself, you're so eager to blow it up and do something different. But the thing is, if you lose James Harden and Paul George for nothing, and the only person you have to bargain with is injured Kawhi, you're not getting that much in return, and you don't have picks. The franchise is going to be in a very rough spot for the foreseeable future. So we can't let that happen either. So it's almost like we have to re-sign Harden too, because we just like can't let him walk for free. We gave up a first-round pick for him unprotected to Philly, and pick swaps and expiring deals. So like we've put ourselves in a position where we need to re-sign these guys. And it was almost like I don't understand why the Clippers went all in when it was so like I just don't get it. We went all in for something that we just hadn't really tested yet. And what I mean by it, I mean Kawhi 2-on-3 healthy in the playoffs. Like, how far were we? We didn't really test that. We just said, oh, man, we need regular season help because our players can't stay healthy. So let's bring in James Harden. But now you're in the position that Brooklyn and Philly were in. We're like, do you want to pay this guy? He's aging and he's declining as the season goes on. Although in the playoffs, he did find a little revival. But James Harden's not getting any better. Like, and neither is Paul. And neither is Kawhi. Like, it's next episode's going to be on should we pay James Harden. I think that should be the next episode. And I'll do like a similar kind of thing and like evaluate his whole performance from the trade. But it's a very tough situation for the Clippers to be in. Remember, Brandon Boston's also a free agent. The Clippers are probably going to want to see what they can do with him. Like, again, if you're not going to play him, then let him walk and just use that $1 million or like whatever vet minimum on somebody that's a little bit more ready to contribute. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. Mason Plumlee should definitely go. It's funny because I saw PJ Tucker the other day. He has a player option. He's definitely going to opt into that $11 million. And who's going to want that $11 million? You know, if we could shed that salary, that would get us closer to getting below that second apron. But who wants PJ Tucker on an $11 million contract? However, it is an expiring contract. So midway through the season, maybe teams will want it. Maybe. That's got to be the hope that you're holding out for as a Clipper fan. Because that contract, PJ, let's see who's making the most, right? Kawhi Leonard is making the most. Paul George second, if he opts in. Norman third. Zubac. PJ Tucker is the fifth highest paid player on our team, which is like ridiculous. So like, yeah, things need to happen there. I mean, I bet you the Clippers front office is going through ways where they can try to shed that salary, but we shall see. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. Subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more content on the NBA. I've been talking about every single game after it ends. And Locked On Clippers is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Let me know what you think of the possibilities of Paul George leaving. Can we let him walk? Do you want him to go? Do you think it's addition by subtraction? See, here's the thing. I didn't even talk about the basketball side of things. If Paul George leaves and we just have Harden, I do not think our team would be better. Depends who you replace him with, but you're not finding someone, as I'm saying, with the financial lack of flexibility that we're in, you are not finding someone that is going to equal Paul George's value. You're just not. Like if you're committed to Kawhi, then you should probably want Paul George back. I'm serious. Because you're not going to find a better co-star. You're not getting Siakam. Like, it's just not happening. So, anyway, that's what I think. It'd be a terrible situation if Paul George left. If we're keeping 2-1-3, if we're keeping Kawhi, we got to keep Paul. Like, I just, that's how I feel about it, unfortunately. But anyway, let me know what you guys think in the episode, or in the comments. What is he worth? Answer all the questions. How committed are you still to 2-1-3? Let me know. The age-old proverb continues. Go Clippers and have a beautiful Memorial weekend.